All right, guys, welcome to another episode of 4P Soccer. I am your host, Freddy, alongside with Jerrick today. Jerrick, another episode, another time. Here little by little, we're making a little growth and a little statement in our footballing community. Um, Wanted to first start off with a little bit about what kind of was going on with this weekend, right? And a little bit about the Champions League. A little bit of the Champions League. What happened over the weekend? What it kind of says for like at least the two major leagues, especially in the Prem, and then we'll see where we go from there. So I wanted to start off with during the Champions League, we saw Barcelona lose. I was telling people like Barcelona just lost to pretty much a B team from PSG because some of their top players weren't even suited up. And then we have Real Madrid, go out on a commanding win against Kairat. But the thing is, I look at it as a Madrid fan, and I'm like, we need that. We need to win that game, no matter what, right? Like we need to be Kairat, like through and through, because we we need those points going into, especially with this new format, right? We also saw Liverpool struggle, not just
Oh yeah.
in the Champions League, but in the Prem as well. And then we're seeing every time. I always tell people never underestimate Arsenal, right? I know last year Arsenal eliminated Real Madrid from the Champions League, but when you go look at the project that Arteta has been doing, for the last 5 6 years, you don't want to underestimate Arsenal at this point, right? Arsenal is the type of team that's going to come, ping the ball around, move it around, you know, 90 minutes a game, and put you on your heels and pretty much pound you for every single time, right? We know that Arteta is off of that branch of positional play, um, and we know that he has a lot of influences from Pep Guardiola himself, and he said it himself, right? But there's things that he does a little bit different, right? With what you saw just across the board from Bayern, from some of the other teams that and some of the score lines, what were some of your takeaways for the Champions League break?
Yeah. So obviously, as a Barca fan, pretty disappointed in giving up the goal late in the second half.
Now,
Um,
do you as a Barca fan, do you think that that was an offsides, or was that called correctly?
with all the technology that we have right now, I'm like, no. I mean, it is what it is, right? Like in the past, I think we've had a fair amount of chances that have kind of gone in our favor. Kind of like Chelsea, they scored the goal, right? It bounced out, but that was before VAR technology, goal line technology, and the ref was just like, no, it bounced out. Like it didn't completely cross the line. So, I mean, with people nowadays complaining about offsides or fouls, it is what it is, right? And officiating, as much as I've gotten more into coaching and scouting and things like that, I've become more appreciative of the refereeing and the process, only because it's a super hard job to do, and I can only imagine at the Champions League level, like, you have to get that decision right. Because as we've seen, right, there are some refs who get those decisions wrong, and those refs don't ref anymore, or they're not invited back into those tournaments. So I don't think it was offsides. I mean, from what I saw with the VAR and everything, it's just like, okay, it is what it is. I think what happened, Flick's high line, if you keep doing a high line and everyone knows you're going to be pressing up with a crazy high line and offside trap, people are going to find ways to break it, and eventually the one or two times it's going to happen. And it just, against PSG, we know they're probably they are the best team um, right now. I know they got beat over the summer against Chelsea, but collectively they had a fantastic year, and they have that momentum going into it, coming off of a Champions League win and a Club World Cup final. So I don't think our boys were up for the task, but I think as they come back and reset, they're going to be ready. It also doesn't help that Yamal is injured again with that groin injury, so he'll be out for a couple of weeks. It's okay.
No, I mean, I feel like you guys are, when it comes to developing players, I feel like Barcelona does a really really good job in developing players, right? Um, a Flick is playing that German style soccer,
Yeah.
the pressing high up the field, try to win the ball back. Even if you hear, he's currently the national team coach for Canada, Jesse March.
Jesse March.
He's also all about that German philosophy, right? Um, no, I think when you're playing a team like as a Real Madrid fan, I'm going to say this, right? When you're playing teams like PSG, Arsenal, um, Barcelona, Bayern in the Champions League, right? I'm trying to think. Chelsea, right? I mean, Chelsea is it's a little rocky right now, but with that big win that they just had against Liverpool, I think they're going to start steamrolling again, right?
Yep.
And you could never underestimate Chelsea, right? They're always come like with some surprises. So I'll say maybe like I don't know if I'm missing like any other team right now from the top of my head, but even Real Madrid, right? Like at least let's just put like those six big teams out there. Even Liverpool, seven. I'll put Liverpool in there because despite Liverpool right now being a little bit rocky and having a three-game losing streak in the Prem and coming off of a loss in the Champions League, you should never, and Man City as well, right? These are teams that you have to go in. You kind of have to be precautious and extra prepared for when you're playing them, right? Um, so it was very interesting to see it. Obviously, as a Real Madrid fan, I'm like, dude, I'll take that any day because it lets me go and roast all these Barcelona fans. I was telling people that it's kind of more embarrassing to lose to like a B team or like a backup team for PSG 2-1 than losing 5-2 against Atletico, right? Atletico is another team that you got to be a little bit cautious too because after that beatdown that they put on Real Madrid, it doesn't matter who you are, like you have to respect them, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I mean that was just my thought process. I felt like with this new format and the way teams are kind of playing, it's gonna kind of I want to say that these 2 wins or 3 wins that Madrid has helps them to kind of be more prepared for the knockoff rounds. My only thing is, um, like I was telling like 2 days ago, I went out with my buddy out to lunch and we're watching the Real Madrid game, and we're both coaches ourselves, and we're like, man, Real Madrid plays yeah, they play okay, and they play because in Spain positional play is the style. Every team in La Liga is gonna play positional play, right? But when you look at like Villarreal made it when they were in possession. It's pass move, pass move, pass move, pass move, causing chaos and moving all
Mhm.
these stuff around. And I was like, dude, we need to be able to do that, right? It was a few substitutions that came in that started causing a little bit of the chaos that allowed us to go walk away, with a 3-1 score line against Villarreal. But with Barcelona's loss now um, in La Liga, kind of puts us in the driver's seat again to win, um, the Spanish league. How do you feel going into the season and what's with remaining of this? Well, we're only like what 5, 6, 7 games in.
Yeah.
How do you feel about this 4-1 loss today to Sevilla, which looks like Sevilla had a field day with you guys? So for me, it was kind of glad because I'm like, okay, I can get back at you guys, um, especially when one of the greatest pop stars of all time goes and says that they won contracts like they're Real Madrid. So how do you feel about this loss? And then if you were Hansi Flick, what would you be looking to change right now?
So, I mean, at the end of the day, right, it comes down to points and goal differential. And both teams right now, between Madrid and Barcelona, which are the top two, they are, I think, Madrid is 2 points ahead of Barcelona. And right now in match week 7, I don't care about a goal differential, right? But that is going to play a role in later games. So these 5-2 losses or these 4-1 losses can't happen again unless Barca beats Real Madrid 4-0. You know, like it has to be like the top teams, the top table teams. They can't have those losses unless it's with each other. With being 2 points ahead and not having an El Clasico yet, I think it puts more pressure on Madrid. Given, you know, I don't remember if they beat Barcelona last year.
We
So
didn't. It was like
there you go.
4-1 and then 4-0.
Yeah,
And then
pretty.
all
I
this
mean, like
everyone's like,
big
oh, we
scorelines.
beat you twice. And I'm like, dude, that was all last season.
There we go. See, and you know, we have to take it as it is, right? Because if I remember correctly, Real Madrid did not have Danny Carvajal the entire season because he tore his ACL very early in the season or in preseason. So it's different teams every single time that we play each other. So I think when it comes down to it, it's going to come down to those two matchups. Obviously, like we have teams like Atletico Madrid who they are a competitor to win La Liga. I don't think right now that they are there yet. Julian Alvarez is having a hell of a season so far, right? Scoring a brace against Real Madrid is nothing to laugh at. I think they need a few more pieces to help Alvarez out a little bit more with some developed players, but I think it's going to come down to probably after I'm going to say around the winter time, because now come January, a lot of the players and a lot of the officials are going to start looking at we're going to look at Champions League, and then we have to make sure our boys are safe and healthy for the World Cup, because that is going to play a massive role in how those players who are selected for the World Cup, they need to be healthy and they need to be able to represent, especially on the Spain side. I think going into the World Cup this year, Spain is a heavy favorite. I don't 100%. think France is going to be. I mean, they should be strong. I don't think they're going to be as strong. Someone asked me, I think a couple weeks ago, between the last time that we had a show, they said, "Hey, who do you think is going to win the World Cup?" And I'm like, I think Spain is looking really, really good right now. France is good. They'll probably go pretty deep. Brazil isn't showing super well right now.
But you got to trust Ancelotti. That's the one thing
I do trust in him.
I do have to kind of give it, and it's not just my bias because I lived in Brazil, right? And not just because I love Brazilian people, not just because Ancelotti is, you know, a former Real Madrid coach, but Ancelotti finds a way to make teams good, successful, and win, right? Like, there's a reason why he's the only manager to have won the title, you know, by landslides in the top 5 leagues in the world, right? So I feel like you can't really discard Brazil going into the World Cup, you know, because Brazil will always be Brazil.
This is true. I think right now there are a lot of Brazilian players who are struggling.
This season, Rodrigo being 2 of them.
Yeah, and then Richarlison's just getting back into it. And also, like, I think a lot of the people in Brazil, and I could be wrong, but I think a lot of them are still depending on Neymar to kind of be their leader going into this World Cup. Let's face it, this is probably his last one. I would be surprised if he comes back in 2030. But again, we have the big studded people. Messi's going to hopefully be in this World Cup. Ronaldo's most likely going to be in this World Cup, but they're not going to have as big of a role as these younger players. I hope this is a transition time for those international teams, and I think Brazil can do it, but those Brazilian players have to get minutes. Like Endrick right now, I love Endrick. I think his story is super, you know, it's super relatable. It's an inspiring story, but he's not getting that many minutes under Xabi, and he didn't get that many under Ancelotti either. And so is he the next, as people think, right, coming from Brazil over to a team like Madrid, is he going to be the next guy for them? He can't if he's not getting minutes.
Yeah, and part of it too, as a Madrid fan, like how do you go about it, right? Like you have Rodrigo, you have Mbappe, you have name Vinicius, and then out of nowhere now you have Mastantuono, who's been
Yeah.
killing it, right? And so, and even then you have also Brahim Diaz, who like Brahim Diaz can be a starter on any other team, if you take him out of Madrid. And then there's Endrick, right? So like, I want to say Endrick is great, and as a Madrid fan, I would say in the wintertime we should do either two things: either we should sell him, or we should look to just loan him out,
Yeah.
get him some development time on it, because it's funny that you were talking about. We were talking about Endrick is real quick on this. Someone told me, and they were saying to for Real Madrid to be more effective, one of all of those guys has to give, right? Like we have to get rid of one of them. And they asked me, and the people always ask me, if you were Florentino Perez, who would you get rid of? And I know a lot of people, and this is like a crazy take, right? But I would get rid of Vinicius, and the only reason being is because Vinicius is a great player, and I'm not saying that he's not, but the baggage that comes with him is kind of too much, right? Where he gets into it with the
Yeah.
fans, where he's talking about like racism and he's talking about this and that, or whatever the case may be, right? And I'm not saying that there's nothing. I mean, I'm not saying that you need to go out and and accept people being racist to you, right? But at the same time, like you also instigate the fans, and then the fans instigate you back, and then you go to a press conference and say, "Oh, they called me, a monkey and all this stuff," and I'm like, dude, you were instigating them, like you started it. Did they take it overboard? I agree, but at the same time, to me, all that extra bullshit that comes uh with Vinicius, I'm sick of it. I'm tired of it, right? Um, and then even last season, I was like, dude, what happened to you? You went from being second place in the Ballon d'Or discussion, right? And there is some sort of argument to be made whether the Ballon d'Or was robbed from you or not. And then you fall off the face of the earth, and then you kind of don't mesh well with Mbappe. But Rodrigo, I feel like Rodrigo does mesh better with Mbappe than Vinicius. I mean, all those factors when I look at it, and even against Villarreal, Rodrigo came in and kind of turned the game around. You know, I know Vinicius had a goal, but I'm pretty sure he had a goal, but Rodrigo just came in and it was like just changed the momentum of that game, right? And so um, with Endrick, I think Real Madrid either needs to say, you know what, let's just sell him, or they need to go and say, you know what, we're gonna loan you out, and then when we're ready to call you back, we will. Or they can do what they did with Nico Paz, right, where um, they sold them out to Como, but then they also have an option to buy back before anybody else can give them, an offer, right? And Real Madrid is looking to express that buyback because Nico Paz has also been killing it at Como. So, I mean, there's many ways to go about Endrick. I do feel like he does have so much talent and so much potential. Um, or even put him on the second team, right, in the Real Madrid Castilla team, to get
Yeah.
him minutes. So it's gonna be interesting to see what's gonna happen with Endrick. Everybody's saying the same thing. Why is Endrick not getting any minutes? So I think at this point right now, what Xavi's trying to do, he's just trying to to figure Real Madrid out, right? Um, we're like a month in the season. I feel like he understands it, and now we just need to finish fine tuning some of the other things. So
Yeah. I would say, Madrid is kind of like, I feel like coaching a Madrid team or like any Madrid team, really, coaching them would be like being the director of an Avengers movie. You, you have so many big personalities. Your club is paying a lot of money. There's a lot of expectations. There's a lot of hype. And, coaches can do incredibly well in managing those players because, again, if I was sold to a club or if I had a price tag, if another club wanted to come in and buy me and they're like, hey, pay us 200 million and he's yours, I'd walk around with a little bit of swagger. I'd walk around like, who the, for you to tell me like what I need to do. I make this much money. I do this, but with being a coach, there's a lot of pressure and expectation to perform well. I couldn't imagine a scenario where a Real Madrid coach doesn't go to the knockout stages of the Champions League, isn't in contention for La Liga, isn't making, tournament runs in all the domestic cups and things like that. When that happens, like Madrid makes changes and they make them pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But I would agree. I think the solution for Endrick, in order, if Ancelotti wants Endrick to be on the World Cup squad and at least give him some minutes or give him some exposure, I would say, loan him out. I think he'd be a pretty good fit. As you're talking, I'm thinking the English Championship League would give him a lot of minutes and opportunity to be seen. I know people kind of talk about, English second division isn't all great, but we still have a lot of
It is the toughest. It is the toughest second division in the world. So, I mean, but see, this is the thing. Like in Honduras, right? And I know we're kind of talking about this, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of Honduran soccer players always like that were pros back in the day. They all, or even now say passport. The passport matters, right? When you're a player like Endrick, right, who got bought from Palmeiras to Real Madrid, you're trying to make the Brazil squad. You're not playing in the championship.
Right.
You're at least playing for Fulham, right? At best, or I mean at worst, right? Now, if you're a player from Honduras that you want to make the squad, you go to the championship. You know,
Yeah.
so or like you go to a team like Leeds United, for example, because like that's where Rafinha came from, right? Rafinha was the one that like kept Leeds United for 2 years, afloat. But I'm pretty. I want to see what's going to happen with Endrick, right? I'm not going to say that he's not frustrated with the amount of playing time he is not getting, right? But at the same time, he could be on the national team, because I will say this, I feel like that's starting to become a trend where they're trying to call up some of these young ballers up to the national team, right? And I
Yeah.
think that because Spain did it and it's worked out for them, right? Mexico's doing it and it's worked out for them, right? Um, there's been moments where they have called up Endrick and he has had really good performances with the Brazilian national team, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then even USA, I think, is starting to do it. And then Honduras, like I told you, like Honduras just called up two guys that are on the U23 teams in the second division, or for Hamburger and or on the second teams for Hamburger and Mines. So I want to see how that's going to play out on this Concacaf. I mean, on this FIFA day to see if they get any playing time, right? Because now you need to play 3 games with that federation to be sealed with for that federation. Right
Yeah.
before it used to be you have to have 1 game and that's it. You were done. You were locked in for forever. Right now it's 3 games. So I'm interested to see how like these guys play out. But again, like I felt like Lamine Yamal is starting a trend, right? Where hey, if I'm doing good and I'm being influential on my top team, then I deserve that opportunity to be um, on national team.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
even see with Argentina too, because Masantuono is being called up to the Argentinian national team. So I think Spain, and that's what I like about Spain, right? They always like to try to go against the norm, right? Like, and it's worked out for them, And the only thing it does is help you to prep more and more for the future.
Yeah, I think, would you rather take a young player who has potential to have all the experience in the world, or an old seasoned player? Because right now, like if we look at, we can transition to the US national team, right? Tim Ream, I think he's like 35, 36. He's older than I am. And I feel like he's ancient in comparison. I'm only 32, but I feel like he's very, a lot older than I am. Um, we still depend on him to be like the captain and to be the guy in our back line. Now Chris Richards is stepping up. We have other younger guys who are playing in the Prem and then the Championship who are doing really, really well. But for the longest time we were like, hey, we need to be dependent on these old veteran guys. Why don't we invest in giving these young guys developing time in playing for the senior team, right? So I want to bring up a name for who I think should be called up to the Brazilian national team. I don't follow the Brazilian national team by other than, oh, hey, they played, they won, whatever, right? I believe if Endrick doesn't get called up, you ready? I want to butcher the name, but Esteval
I
for
think he got
Chelsea,
called up for the national team.
as he should, because he is playing exceptionally well. Scored a goal over Liverpool, I think, to seal the win for them. Um, it If he gets called up, Endrick should get called up, and some of the other Brazilians that are coming into the Premier League that we've seen, especially I think
Here,
Chelsea brought in 2 or 3.
I'll tell you the call up players um,
Perfect.
for Brazil. So in goal we have Benito or Bento, Ederson, and Hugo Souza. So I think because Allison is injured, I mean we all know that the
Okay.
one that's probably going to end up being started is going to be Ederson, right?
Yeah.
Um, then in defense we have Caio Henrique, Carlos Augusto, Douglas Santos, Eder Militao, Fabricio Bruno, Gabriel Guimarães. Um, Bernardo, Vanderson, and Wesley, which I would tell you, I think the two starting center backs from this entire roster should be Eder Militao and Gabriel Guimarães. I mean, Guimarães has been killing it for Arsenal, and um, he has like one of the best ratings in the world with the least amount of like dribbles or players beating him on the dribbles and stuff like that. So, and
Yeah.
Militao has been progressively getting better and better. So I think if I'm Ancelotti thinking into the future, going into the World Cup, I want to give reps to Militao because I know Militao is used to being in those big games because he plays for the biggest club in the world.
Yep.
Um, and same thing with Gabriel. So I would maybe give them some fluidity so they can get that connection going on because it's important, especially in the back line.
Yeah.
And then
I
the
would agree.
midfielders we have um, Andre, Bruno Guimarães, Casemiro, João, João Gomes, João Linton, and Lucas Paquetá. I mean, I think out of this, he's probably going to play Casemiro, Bruno Guimarães, and Lucas Paquetá. They're used to playing, big rumbustious stadiums. So
Yep.
I do, and then the thing is too with Neymar. Um, Neymar is like Ronaldo. Like Neymar has the same value to Brazilians as Ronaldo and Messi has to
Yep.
Argentinians and Portuguese, right? And then in the fronts we have Estevão, Gabriel Martinelli, Igor Jesus, Luis Henrique, Mateus Cunha, Richarlison, Rodrigo, and Vinicius Jr. Which, and this is gonna sound a little crazy, but if I'm playing like a 4-3-3, for example, right up top, as I would play with Martinelli as my starter. I would do Rodrigo on the other side. I'll have Estevan as my center forward, and then Vinicius, Richarlison can always come off the bench and substitute some of those guys. But
Yeah.
that was the list that Ancelotti put. I think it's a pretty decent list,
Yeah.
right? Ancelotti said that he wants Neymar to get in better physique so he can call him up, but he does have plans into getting um, Neymar included on the national team. So, and I think Neymar this could be potentially Neymar's last World Cup as well. So from
which is
those
sad, man.
three, which would be sad. And I'll tell you this: the one team we shouldn't be surprised when the World Cup starts and could make a really, really good run is Portugal. Because I think
Yeah,
right now, every time I watch Portugal play, it's like they can play you anyway, right? Yes, I know they have a center forward, you know, a 40-year-old Cristiano Ronaldo. It's not the same as that 27-year-old or even the 30-year-old Cristiano Ronaldo that led, that Portuguese squad to the in the Euros and won the Euros
yep,
for Portugal. Right? It's not the same player. He does have a really good cast under him, but I feel like all these guys are on the same mission of this is Ronaldo's last World Cup. We need to try to do everything we can to win it. So one of the greatest Portuguese players of all time, if not, I mean, I know there's always going to be the debate of like who's the greatest player of all time between him and Messi, but I'm pretty sure the Portuguese players are like, we got to get Ronaldo a World Cup because
yeah,
Messi just got one. Whether you want to say FIFA helped him or not, but Messi has one. Doesn't matter. Messi has one, and Portugal is looking at it and saying, "We're hungry. We're gonna come out and we're gonna punch you in the face. We're gonna knock your teeth out, and we're gonna go and try to win at all costs the World Cup." So that's gonna be a team to watch out for going into the World Cup.
yeah. I think they were one to watch in the last one, but it was Morocco, man. That team was unstoppable, especially in in those early stages. No one, I mean, I don't want to say no one, but I feel like very few people thought that Morocco would have beat Portugal. And if you remember in 2022, people were like, FIFA's going to set it up where it's a Messi Ronaldo final, and they were on opposite sides of the bracket. And
And they tried to
I think if they beat Morocco, it would have been a Portugal Argentina final.
of 100%. And I think
Or
that's what FIFA was going
France was
for.
still on that other side, so we'll give it that. I'll give them the France, right? But it would have been incredibly close. And Ronaldo does have a good cast. The one thing I'll say though, if you look at or if you watch the interviews of how the players talk about Messi, there's a brotherhood. There's like it's almost like an older brother feel. I don't think the same aura or the same vibes are in the locker room in the Portuguese locker room. Now that could change. I'm not in those rooms, right? I don't watch all the Portuguese players talk about Ronaldo, but if you watch everyone talk about like the aura of Messi and going into the 2022 World Cup, a lot of us felt like, okay, they're the favorites. They should win. Messi deserves to win. And it might be too early to kind of set that narrative right now with Ronaldo. I mean, let's watch the international breaks, right? I mean, the U.S. is slated to play Portugal in right before the World Cup in those pre World Cup friendlies that we have. So
Right.
we'll be able to see what they look like. But man, Portugal does have some ballers.
And and and, and the reason why I say that they're sorry to cut you off on
No,
that
you're
one.
good.
But the reason why I'm saying this is because I watch a lot of I like to watch Portuguese games because obviously I have a little bias towards Ronaldo, being one of the greatest players to play for Real Madrid. Um, but like I think it's Rafa Benitez or Rafa Martinez. I forget which of the two. When he got to Portugal, he said, "There's no way you cannot discount." Because the previous thing with the previous coach was he's old. I don't, and I'm trying to win. But this coach was like, dude, you don't you don't bench Ronaldo. Doesn't matter how old he is. Like you still have him on the field because he gives you put him on the field. He has that respect, right? Like we saw him dominate Lamine Yamal in the in the finals for the Nations League, right? Like he bodied the crap out of him, and so I mean, Ronaldo knows he knows himself. He's like he even said it himself. He's like, I don't have the same energy and the same endurance and stamina that I did before, right? To take over the game the way I used to do before, right? But he still has that vertical, so you can put the ball up there. He's gonna probably get a header on it. He's smart in the box, right? And it's funny because in one of his interviews, he was saying like Mbappe needs to learn how to play that center forward position the way he did, right? Like he learned how to play, as a center forward himself, right? Knowing how to like making the run and dropping back in, creating the space just to take the shot and all that stuff. So um, I want to say that I feel like the players themselves, and this is the other thing too, because you got to remember, Argentina is a very they're Hispanic, so the Hispanic culture is you come in and you take care of your own, right? Like we see it like the Paul is like, you know, Messi's bodyguard on the field. It's funny to watch, right? Like there is that connection, there is that brotherhood, right? Europeans are slightly different. So I want to say that it's known that that brotherhood is there, and they don't have to say it. They just know that they're on a mission to try to get Cristiano Ronaldo a World Cup, because and I think it was Bruno Fernandez that said it. He gave everything. He's given everything to Portugal himself, and he himself single handedly made Portugal relevant. And the only thing we can do
Yeah.
back now is give him the one thing he's missing. And I think he has the entire squad saying like, "Hey, we got to do this for Ronaldo because Ronaldo already did everything for our country."
Yeah. And, like I said, might be too early to start pushing that narrative. I mean, might never too early to push a narrative, but I think that they're definitely going to be a team to look out for. And, they have a lot of really young, shining stars that are coming in that are playing for big clubs. So, I think right now we can just say, hey, we're going to put them on a shelf. They're going to be hopefully, if I would say maybe quarterfinalists, semifinalists, at the very best. I want them to get to a final. I'd love to see Ronaldo, kind of hold the trophy up. But I guess if we were to put a prediction, I would say they could make it to the quarterfinals, depending on how the draw goes as well, right? Because they can pull a really difficult group.
Yeah, I mean, but if Croatia can make the final with just two good players and the rest are like fillers, then why not? So well, let's see how that goes. Let's see how that turns out. Um, I want to see what are your thoughts and your predictions. We saw Liverpool lose in the Champions League. We saw Liverpool lose this weekend, and I think it was Esteban that had a phenomenal goal against
Yep.
Liverpool over the weekend. Everybody was buzzing about it, right? Would how do you? I know you probably are not an Arsenal fan, but if we do have any Arsenal fans out there that do listen into this, how would you first? Are you optimistic or pessimistic, right, with where they're at right now, and with Liverpool losing 3 games in a row now? Should Arsenal fans maybe start saying, "Hey, we might have a shot at this"?
You know, I feel like I'm blessed without being, having a diehard team that I go for in the Prem. Obviously, you know, I've been a fan of Chelsea, or liked, right? I've liked Chelsea, I've liked Arsenal, I've liked Man City, liked Man U, depending on the year. I want to say that Arsenal has so many expectations and they always look like they're going to do it and they always fall short to some degree, right? Um, I think they have the ability, they have the technical ability, they have the tactical ability to win the Prem and go far in the Champions League. But I think someone like Chelsea or you know Liverpool has the tools. I think they're still trying to figure out how to work together, especially with Wirtz on the team. They they have Isak on the team. Like they have some heavy hitters on Liverpool, and they just have to figure out how to play with each other because they lost some players too, right?
Right.
Um, Arsenal, I think, has done an exceptional job over the past 6 years to at least stay relevant because we can see Manchester United. I call them the Dallas Cowboys of the Premier League because they have all this money, they have the big name recognition, but they always fall short on expectations. I think the last time that they were somewhat relevant was 2009. Sorry, Man U fans. I don't. Again, I follow the teams when they're doing well. Not a bandwagon by any means. I liked watching how they play, but then I really haven't seen them in any major competition since then. I think Arsenal they should be a top 3. If they drop below that, it's typical Arsenal. They bottle at the very end, right?
Yeah, I want to say the last 2 seasons or 4 seasons, either 3 to 4 seasons. Is the last 3 to 4 seasons they've been runner-ups every single year.
Yep.
For the Prem, right? And especially the last 2, it's come down to the last match, right? Where like 2 years ago was like City was playing, I forgot who, and it was like one of the teams is already getting relegated, and Arsenal needed to win their match, and then City lose their match, and then they would have won it. Which in that case, I don't say that Arsenal bottled it because they dragged out
dependent on the result of someone else.
Yeah,
right.
And I think the same thing happened last year with Liverpool. Like they needed Liverpool to lose their last game, and then they won their last game, and then Liverpool, both teams won, and then Liverpool was champs, right? Right now, Arsenal is a point ahead from Liverpool. But anyways, finish your thoughts on Arsenal.
Yeah, I think Arteta's a great coach. I think he has the tools that he can, but the Prem is so hard to predict right now, especially with the new guys who are coming in, transfers that have happened, and we still have a transfer window in January where people are going to try to solidify their squads for the second half of the season. I'll say that they should be a top 3 finisher. I'm hopeful for Arsenal, but again, the Arsenal curse hasn't been lifted in how many years? So I don't want to make a big claim. Sorry, Gooners.
Now let me ask you this. Let's say Arsenal goes and doesn't win anything again this season. Should Arteta get sacked?
That's a good question. I think it depends on what the front office really, really wants and what they expect, right? Arsenal is not a Real Madrid. Arsenal is not I'll even say they're not a Barcelona. They're not a PSG right now where you are expected to win trophies. You are expected to bring home, wins and things like that. If he is bringing in results, making Arsenal relevant, because I think there was a little bit of a spell in the late 2015s where Arsenal wasn't really talked about. That could be because Real Madrid's dominating European football, Barcelona, we have the German teams that are coming in. I think if he's keeping them relevant, a coach can sell a lot of points to the front office on, I just need this player. I just need this player. This guy, in the scouting world, it's if we had 2 or 3 solid players here, then it would completely change the dynamic of our outcomes. And the front office can, depending on the club, buys those players or tries to supplement for something else. I don't see Arteta getting sacked at the end of this year. I think if he were to drop it out of like 5th place, I think that would be like, okay, you're no longer bringing results. You're no longer being competitive in this league. Maybe we need to have a change.
And you know what's funny? Because I know a lot of people say, like, well, how long has Arteta been there and all this stuff, so he gets sacked? And I'm like, no, you don't go sack the guy to make you relevant, right? Like, same thing with Diego Simeone, right? Like, they don't sack Diego Simeone. He's still competing against the other 2 giants, right? And to your point, I think at the end of the day, if they can make it tough on the rest of the Prem and he's doing really well and everything else, you keep him because at some point he's going to break through and he's going to win you a championship, right? That's what's happened with Simeone as well, right? Like the problem with me is Simeone treats Atletico like a small club, or he's like, oh, we don't have the money that Real Madrid or Barcelona has, and I feel like that's holding him back a little bit from being more dominant in La Liga, right? And also, I'm not a big fan of his parking the bus style, right? I think he
You're
needs to
just
get
mad
away
because they
with.
beat you 5-2.
Dude, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's awful. It's awful.
No, it's
But
boring footy. It was like Chelsea versus Bayern, I think in like 2012, 2013, where it was a 5-5-0. And you're just like, can we play footy, please? Like, this is insane.
yeah,
But
and I
no,
think Chelsea won that Champions League.
yes, in the last minute, I remember it very well because Didier Drogba, I think he won it, and then I think that's when, I could be wrong, He either went to another team, or I think that's when he was like 40 or something when that happened, and he decided to come to Phoenix Rising or went to invest in them.
Yeah. Well, the thing is too, that Champions League I think was the chosen one that was the coach, and that was the only time that that a team has ever won or that ever conceded 15 goals in a season. And I don't
Yep.
see that break. That's gonna be a hard like feat to beat. Can you get 14 goals conceded in one single season? And
It's
I don't
insane.
with the goal scoring right now with how crazy it is now. I don't think any team will be able to break that record. That record is gonna that go down in history, and it's probably not gonna be touched for like another 100 years from now.
Well, especially
So
now that they're adding more games, right? Like they're adding a lot more games to player schedules, um, more tournaments, and so I don't think that's a feasible statistic to even have again. If they were to be like, hey, in 50 games we only conceded 10 goals, like that's a good statistic to have, and that would be a good measure of how are we doing defensively or tactically on that. But having it as like a in one season we scored this many goals or had these many goals conceded, people aren't. We have more games to play, so of course they're going to score. Like there's opportunities to score more goals.
yeah, but yeah, so we'll see. We'll see. I think Arsenal can do a really good run and a really good push for the Prem. I want to root for them.
Yeah.
They're already like a point. They're already a point ahead from Liverpool, thanks to Chelsea. I think, and I feel like when you watch Arsenal play, it's like you see the hunger on the field. Like they're
Yes.
hungry for that trophy. They're like I feel like they're more of a team on a mission now than ever before, right? And Zuameni, I mean, he's looking really, really good for Arsenal, man. I mean, Bukayo Saka and then Martinelli, and then when Saka was injured, I forget who was the kid that was playing in his position, and it's like, dude, Arsenal has players that like their best players can go missing, and they have other players that can fill in those spots just as good as their top players. So it'll be interesting to see if they can stay healthy because that's always one of the biggest issues. Um, Mostly in the Prem, right? Because the Prem is a lot more physical
Yep.
and is a lot more rugged than all the other leagues, right? Like because in La Liga, you like look at a guy and it's a yellow card, right? You barely fall and it's a red, right? Like that is La Liga. In the Prem, it's like you broke someone's foot and they're like and punch them in the nose, no foul. They tell you to get up, you know.
Elbows too
So
high. It's just like spot kick
right,
going the other way.
yeah. So I think it'll be interesting to see. Um, I want to stay hopeful for Arsenal. I love Arteta. I love what he's done with the squad. Right, like he's made them now where like they're super relevant,
Yeah.
and Tottenham fans they just need to shut up about Arsenal because you're not doing what Arsenal is doing. Right.
No,
Um,
not even. They're not even close. I mean, like Arsenal is the kind of team where, as much as people love to hate on Harry Kane, when he finally won a trophy, everyone's like, finally, like, congrats, you're however old, 32, 31, like you feel good for them. And I think no matter what, even if you're a Man U fan or if you're a Tottenham fan, I think if Arsenal were to win the Prem or win a Champions League within the next 2 or 3 years, they wouldn't be mad about it. I think they'd
yeah,
be like, okay, like you guys did the work and you trusted the process, because the Arsenal process has been the Arteta era is a long, painstaking process. Tottenham hasn't done it. Man U hasn't done it. So I don't think those clubs have any room to talk about trusting a
but the,
process.
but the thing is too. I feel like the reason why also they're giving him so much room and leeway is because you go watch back some of the games when he was Pep's assistant coach. Pep even said it. He's like, "There's no better guy for me to prep for Arsenal than Arteta himself."
Yep.
Right? And you watch videos. Arteta, you'll see them with Man City. They go score a goal. He's like this. Man City versus Arsenal. Man City goes up 1-0. This is Arteta celebrating the goal. Goes up 2-0, 3-0. So he has that passion for Arsenal. Like he truly bleeds Arsenal.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens and we'll see how it goes for him. Like I said, I'm rooting for them and I wanted it for them to be this is like finally we we won the prem. Finally, you know. So
Hallelujah.
yeah. So but yeah, we'll see how it goes and everything. But anyways, but it's Arsenal. You know, you never know what to expect from Arsenal. Um, as a Real Madrid fan, besides the fact that they dismantled us in the previous years in the Champions League, the way that they're looking right now and the way we are looking right now, I don't want to play them. I don't, and I don't want to.
No.
I want to avoid Arsenal at all costs in the Champions League. Like if we play them, like let us dismantle us in the finals, you know,
Please.
or something.
Where you
But
don't have two opportunities to play us.
yeah, and so they're a scary team, man. They're a scary team. So we'll see what happens. We'll see how it goes for them. I mean, and just in general, like let's keep an eye out, and I want to throw in some really good vibes going towards Arsenal
Yeah.
and stuff. So
We're
so
not
anyways,
Gooner fans, but good luck.
we'll try to get to the last little topic of our agenda today, and we're going into the international break. Right, I'm gonna read you some of the. Let's talk a little bit about Concacaf, or like Pat McAfee likes to call it, the Concava, right? Um, and so I wanted to go and look at I want to read you the qualifying rounds for Concacaf. Um, give me 1 second. Let me look it up real quick and kind of read you where some of the teams are at. Right? I don't know how familiar you're with it. Well, with this final stage of CONCACAF for the group stage, right? We know that there's three teams that are going to qualify directly, and two teams that are going to go to playoffs, and potentially those two extra teams do make the CONCACAF, do make the World Cup, right? So they split it off into three separate groups, and then and then so then you have in Group A you have Suriname, El Salvador, Panama, Guatemala, right? And I'm gonna read you just the groups, and then I'll tell you how we'll go group by group and see what you feel, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how much of Concacaf soccer you watch. I do like to watch a little bit of Concacaf soccer. Then we have Jamaica Group B, Curacao, Trinidad and Tobago, and Bermuda. Um, and then in Group C we have my home country of Honduras, Costa Rica, Haiti, and Nicaragua, right? And then right now, so they have like a little separate group, and then they have like the three best second place teams right now going into this. But we know that only two of them are going to go to the playoff round, and it's Curacao is in first place, El Salvador is in second place, and Costa Rica is in that third place spot. Um, I'm going to give you list. I want to start off with a little bit of the Honduras Costa Rica game, and then if you have any input on it, we can say that we can tell you. So I'm gonna give you the little background. So Costa Rica tied their first two matches, right? They had a surprise tie against Haiti, and they had a surprise tie against Nicaragua. Nicaragua goes to Honduras, loses to Honduras 2-1, but the Haiti did shock Honduras in that tie in Curacao, right? Costa Rica plays this Thursday in Honduras, and I want to say, if this is my thought process. If Honduras wins this game against Costa Rica and they're able to beat Haiti in this window, I feel like Honduras at that point is already cruising into the World Cup, right? In my honest opinion, but I I feel like Costa Rica has the bigger pressure going into that game against Honduras, Reason being is because if they want to be the best second place team, they only have 2 points right now. So in Group C, which is where they're with Honduras, Honduras has 4 points. Costa Rica has 2 points. Haiti has 2 points, and Nicaragua has 1 point. So I want to say that Costa Rica needs to minimum draw with Honduras in Honduras. But the stadium that they're going to play in kind of makes me a little bit optimistic that Honduras may win the match. Um, and then right now, with that they're in third place, if they stay in that third place position for the second place round, like there's no way they make the World Cup. And so then in Group B, we have Jamaica, Curacao, Trinidad and Tobago, and Bermuda. Right? I mean, Jamaica's gonna walk easily through it. Like the squad that they have, like those reggae boys, dude. Like half of the team is in the Prem and in the
Yeah.
championship. Like, dude, and their coach, man, he's done some really good job with those guys.
Yeah,
So
so I'll touch on Costa Rica because I remember watching them in the Gold Cup. It seems like forever ago, but it was just over the summer. Uh, they have really fallen off since their 2014 World Cup appearance.
right,
Like, I'm talking like they have fallen off. Um, I am working, I'm watching a lot of the games in Latvia right now as part of my assignment for Rising. And I see some players that are in the Latvian league, which right now they have like a ranking system of like which countries are like the best European competitions. And I don't know how the scale is, but they're like 43rd or 45th right now. And they have Costa Rican, Bolivian international players on that team, along with the Latvian players, right? Right. Um, but I mean, it is so hard to see Costa Rica coming into Honduras and winning. They could do it, right? But Honduras played exceptionally well in the tournament over the summer, right? They played here,
I went
watched the
to,
game.
I was at those games.
You and I were actually on opposite ends. I saw in your Instagram story, like we're facing the same side of the field. You're all the way to the right, and I'm all the way to the left. And I was like, "Oh, Freddie's here." And you're sitting there taking
Yeah,
pictures with the Saudis that were there for the game after. It was a fun time, right? And Honduras had a really, really good game.
yeah, against
And
Panama, and I'll tell you this: as a Honduran, I'm
and
so glad
Panama,
we eliminated Panama because recently, like I'll give props to Panama. They've gotten better. They've progressed. You know they have grown. I'm not gonna say that they haven't, right? But then to go run their mouths and say that they've always been the top dog of the Central Americans and all that stuff, and I'm like, dude,
please.
everybody knows that the Classico. If you're gonna talk about El Clasico from Central America, you're always gonna know it's Honduras versus Costa Rica.
Yes.
If because USA always dreaded to go play in Honduras, especially in
Hmm.
San Pedro Sula, which is where Costa Rica is gonna play, right?
Yeah.
And it's crazy enough to go and say that Andres Dal, I think it was, that literally said that yeah, the toughest place for me to play ever as a professional athlete was in Honduras, right? So and especially, and then I'll let you finish your thoughts. Like they're gonna play in this stadium called Francisco Morazan. Look it up. It is a small little stadium with it's ghetto, right? Because it's in Central America. Like the fence is here, and then like right next to the fence is the field. So you're gonna those Costa Rican players are gonna feel the presence of that Honduran fan base, right?
Oh yeah.
And in the Nations League, like some of these Mexican players felt that. Like when we have important matches, that's what we take you because we want to make sure that we coming in to rock the house, or we're coming here to punch you in the mouth.
Yeah.
So I'm optimistic that we could beat Costa Rica, but I think it's gonna be a tight game because it's never easy against Costa Rica. But we'll see. I mean, there has been rumors that there has been issues with the new coach, and Costa Rica's kind of all over the place. So I'll let you finish your thought process, then I'll touch base on what you were talking about right now.
So, well, to touch on or to move from Costa Rica, I don't think they're going to win in Honduras, but Curacao and Jamaica, one of the players from Rising, Gerald Margarita, made a move over back to Europe, which I believe was more of like I've been hearing rumors, son's out there, they couldn't get a visa for that. So like that, I understand. And he's playing pretty well in Europe right now. I don't see them out beating Jamaica by any means because Jamaica have some ballers. They have some really good players for what it is, right? Can Jamaica come into to beat the quote unquote holy trinity of the CONCACAF, Mexico, US, Canada, maybe 3 or 4 times out of 10, but they're pretty consistent, and Haiti is pretty consistent as well. But yeah, things are looking up for Honduras, and things are definitely looking up for Jamaica as they leave this group stage into the playoffs.
The one that's really interesting right now is that first group, the Group A with Suriname, El Salvador, Panama, and Guatemala, because Guatemala had a really good Gold Cup.
They did.
And then they're right now sitting 4th. And Panama, I felt like ever since they lost with Honduras, they've kind of been on the derails, of their soccer, because they thought that they were the top dogs in Central America. And Honduras was like, even in Honduras' worst form, which I'll tell you this, like, we started off that tournament embarrassing, losing 6-0 to Canada in Canada, right? I don't know if you watched that game. I remember watching it, and I was like, dude, how we down 6-0, right? El Salvador, who didn't have a good Gold Cup presentation, and same thing with Suriname, are the ones that are actually in the top of that group, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how that group plays out. I think if there is games to watch out for, right, especially for the World Cup qualifiers in the CONCACAF, right, that Guatemala Suriname game is going to be definitely one to watch. Obviously, Honduras, Costa Rica, because like I said, if Honduras wins, now you're kind of in the driver's seat to go to the World Cup, right? If we can beat Costa Rica and we can beat Haiti, like we'll have 10 points, right? We will have 10 points, and if we manage to beat, let's say, beat those two, and then I think Costa Rica plays Nicaragua next, and then Haiti plays Honduras. So even if Costa Rica manages to beat Nicaragua, they will be at 5 points. We'll be at 10 points. At that point, like we're at a 5-point difference from the second team, and I don't think there'll be at that point nobody will be able to touch us. And at that point, we're 1 foot into the World Cup, right? But I think it all starts beating Costa Rica first. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be exciting to watch, but it's not going to be easy. And people out there, if you see Honduras lose, do not text me or call me.
I'll be the first one to text you.
Don't. Because I always tell people there's only a few things in life that kind of determine my mood. That is the Honduran national team, Real Madrid, and the University of Miami football team. So those 3 things sometimes determine my mood, right? So I'm really optimistic going into these World Cup qualifiers. I really want to see how this specific window is gonna play out in the CONCACAF, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like, for example, I think Jamaica. Let me tell you right now, Jamaica's next match is against Curacao, and that's gonna be tough. That's gonna be a tough matchup, right? But if they manage to beat that, there's no way that they're almost in the World Cup as well, right? Because at that point they'll have 9 points, and then I think their next game against Bermuda. So if they beat Bermuda again, they have 12 points. They're cruising.
They're in. Yeah,
they're in.
I think the expansion kind of helps these teams a little bit. Not only the expansion, but I think having the 3 big CONCACAF nations host the World Cup, it's going to allow these smaller I don't want to say smaller, the ones that don't really make it, right?
Yeah.
The countries that usually don't get exposure, that usually get knocked out in the final rounds. I think it'll give them opportunities to kind of demonstrate their presence on the world stage. And if we really think about it, right, World Cups are where teams like clubs are looking to sign players, right? James Rodriguez, as much as I'll say that I believe he was signed too early to Madrid, and that he was kind of like their mistake, if you will. But he had a fantastic World Cup, got signed to a really really good club, and we saw his trajectory, you know, and he made a
I
comeback.
also feel like we screwed him over a little bit, but
Yeah, when you
that's a different subject.
when you go into Real Madrid, right, or any of these big clubs, coming off of a World Cup performance where you're playing with your boys, you're playing with guys that you known or have looked up to for a long time, it's going to be difficult. But if we have someone like Curacao come out, Jerome Margarita, who I think is over in, I want to say Germany. No, he's over in Eastern Europe though, Belgium, I believe. If he gets to perform at the World Cup stage and does well and catches a few eyes of these European coaches, he will get sold and have a better market for himself. 100%.
Yeah. No, I'm hopeful too because like even for like like you said like this is where they want to buy and sell players, right? Um, this has been my theory for the Concava in over the last few years, right? We talked about it last time where we talked about the platforms are actually ruining U.S. soccer, right? Um, and then Mexico is not developing players like the way they used to before, and then in Honduras they're kind of in the same boat as well. I felt like in the early 2000s, CONCACAF was doing this, and then ever since then, it's just done this. And I feel like we're in a slow decline. That's why you see countries like Honduras and Costa Rica like struggling, right? Um, in the CONCACAF, when years before you could pretty much match up some of those teams against like the middle teams or the bottom feeders in South America, and we could compete against them, right? Like European teams were looking into having friendlies with some of these Concacaf teams because they're like, oh, we're going to play against USA, we're going to play against Mexico. We want to be able to see what the Concacaf has, right? What is their style of soccer a little bit. But then I feel like the rest of the world has done this, and then we're just doing this because we're playing politics, and we're not. And like I said, we're not caring about the players. So we're doing this as a whole, as a unit in Concave, in Concacaf. I feel like with the exceptions of like Jamaica and Haiti, that are kind of looking to develop themselves and get better, right? Everybody else is just doing this, and then the rest of the world is getting better and better, and then there's always going to be this big gap, right? Like you will never see a Honduran team go to the Copa America and knock out of a Brazilian squad in third place in the Copa America, right? I feel like we're far away from any CONCACAF team making a huge impact in the world stage. And I like the expansion idea. I like the fact that we don't have the three major guys in the bids for it. But like for me as a Honduran, it should have we should have been like, oh, we should be able to beat the smoke. We should be able to smoke Haiti, and then we should be able to smoke Nicaragua, and we should be able to have a tough matchup against Costa Rica, right? But then when I see that we
Yeah.
tie against Haiti, when I see that we barely snuck away a win against Nicaragua. I'm like, what are we doing? You know, what are we doing? I mean, I'm excited because I also do like the fact that the current manager said, you know what, I want to call up some of these younger kids. Um, he called up Eleni Vargas and he called Leonardo Posadas that are both playing in the under 23 teams in their respective clubs, right? But I forget what's there's one kid that's playing out in Finland, and then they called him up to the national team. He played a little bit against Haiti, and then they were just slaughtering him back and forth. And I'm like, dude, you can't go and slaughter the guy in the media when it's his first game with the national team. You know, like
No, yeah.
jitters are going to be into effect, especially some of these old guys that were on that prime 2010 team for Honduras. They're like chewing up the kid alive, and I'm like, do you guys not remember the first time you guys played with the national team, or the first time you played in San Pedro Sula? You know, so I mean, it'll be interesting to see if these two kids that they just got called up to see if they get any playing time. Like I said, we touched it again. I feel like Spain is is pushing a new narrative and saying, "Hey, listen, trust the young guys a little bit earlier." Um, is this because he's also trying to maybe set up Honduras a little bit for the 2030 World Cup in mind as well? I think it would be good to have some of these young guys as well, because then now whoever comes in and takes over the national team after Rueda right now will make it easier for them to find these kids, you know. So, but that's just a little bit of my 2 cents on Honduras and the rest of Concacaf, right?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like as a unit, like I said again, as a unit in Concacaf, we're all on the downhill, and we're not closing in that gap anytime soon with the rest of the world.
Yeah, we have a few shimmers of hope, right? Like we haven't really talked about Gilberto Mora or like Benjamin Cremonchi or anyone, right? There's shining. There's like little, like you look in the desert. There's like a little shiny thing. You're like, oh, I want to go see what that is. It's like that, but then once we get closer and closer, we're already seeing, oh, it's already claimed, right? Europe's already coming in to try to scoop them away because let's face it, they are the ones who can develop players. But I just looked up this and Bolivia on September 9th beat Brazil 1-0. I believe it was in Bolivia because everyone knows playing in Bolivia is hell, right? The elevation's super high, but still you're having teams like this who, I don't know a lot of Bolivian players. I know of one who plays in Europe because I'm watching the Latvian league right now. Player's pretty good. But again, I don't know a lot of Bolivian international players that are playing in Europe, and they're beating the likes of Brazil in World Cup qualifying games.
Yeah.
So domestic, how am I going to say this? Domestic, like building up of the youth and developing domestic development is the key. I think is the key to success for long-term performance at the world stage.
No, and to touch upon that, like that's one of the things that I like about my new club, right? Where they kind of have that European approach, right? Like they want to go and say we'll practice 4 times a week. We'll have like a very structured European thing, you know, and then even just talking to other people, like um, before me joining this new club, they already try to take out some of these. They try to focus on the development of the player, and they do try to take them out of the country or somewhere so they can have these tryouts with these professional teams to get these kids playing professionally, right? But that's the one thing that I do like that they do different, right, than other clubs in the U.S., right? I mean, or even in our sector, in our region, right? Uh, even in Rising, and I can say this as a former Rising coach. Like, how often do you see kids being pulled up to the first team, right? Like now, it's starting to seem like it's a little bit more trendy within Rising, but before that, it wasn't because, again, we're not having coaches focus on the development of the players,
Not at all.
and so Um, and I think as the more we keep pushing that in the U.S. realm, let's focus on the development. Focus on the development. We will potentially get better, and then hopefully we'll have more Calvins out there than just one guy, or
Yeah.
more Christian Pulisic's out there than just Christian Pulisic, right? Um, how do you feel about USA going into the World Cup? I know you're a big USA fan, so
I'm
how,
a
how
big
do you
USA
feel
critic.
about the how do you feel about them going into the World Cup? I don't know that it's been a rough patch for Pochettino right now.
Yeah, it's, I really like Poch. I think he brings in a lot of expectations that other players in this generation haven't had. I I will publicly go out and say that I did not like Berhalter. I didn't like him the first time he was the coach. I didn't like it. I didn't like the way he got fired, right? That whole thing with the, I kind of stepped away from that drama, but with the Reina family and all that stuff, that is the epitome of youth soccer in America of, if you don't play my kid, I have this dirt on you and you better play him, or else I'm going to, throw this out there. Um, so I like Poch. I think he's a good fit. I think the players have a little bit of culture shock because if we look back in the 2022 World Cup, right before Berhalter got kicked out the first time, all the players were like, "We love him. He's our guy. We all mesh really well with him." And it seemed more like almost like an older brother relationship. And they did get results. I'm not going to say we didn't get results. We got the results, but I think we always, just as the U.S. always does, in the round of 16 or the first round, right before we get into the not the quarterfinals, yeah, the round of 32, we always get knocked out because we play opponents that are either at the top, who won the top of their bracket, or second place, and other brackets just have it a little bit harder than the U.S. I think going into the World Cup, we have a lot of things that we need to focus on. I think Poch has a plan. He wasn't playing. Like, I'll say this, Matt Turner, I like him as a goalkeeper. I don't think he's our guy. And I think we're looking for someone else to be that goalkeeper. Christian Pulisic not playing in the summer, as controversial as that was, if he says that he needed the rest in order to perform better in Europe and to have a better season to go into the World Cup, all the better. And it allowed us to have some exposure to some of the newer guys. I love Diego Luna. I really hope that he gets a shot at being in that roster. He is his stature, he's just a pit bull, right? Like, he's not the tallest, he's not the fastest, he's not the most technical, but we saw him. He has some moves that he can pull off and open and create space. I can't remember right now. Florian Balogun, who didn't play over the summer, but he did play in the small break. I mean, I think the game against South Korea is a really good representation of where the U.S. needs to get to, because South Korea is always a really, really good competitor in international competitions as well as their own domestic competitions. After our defeat to South Korea, I was like, oh, great, we have Japan next. And Japan usually shows up pretty well in World Cups, in big tournaments. So when we played them, I was like, oh, great, here we go again. But then we pulled off a win against Japan. So something happened from that first game into that second game that kind of shifted the mentality. I think we're starting to see a shift right now. I think Posh is kind of just getting rid of the toxic players. I think the Berhalter era, those players that he brought up, I don't think Weston McKennie is worth anything in the midfield. I don't really
I've
like.
always thought he's overrated.
Yeah, I don't like Serginho Dest. Who was that? There was a forward that played for Charlotte, Ojimang or something like that. I don't really like. I saw him play, and I knew we are trying to give these guys a shot. I don't think he's worth the price tag that he was given over the summer. I think he was sold for €1 million or something like that. I think we need to separate ourselves a little bit from Tim Ream. If he plays in the World Cup, it's got to be his last one. That should be his retirement, like, farewell. Don't play for the senior team again. And this isn't to call out the bad decisions of the United States, but I think we're starting to see the shift of, there are other players out there that are playing domestically that can ball out. They just haven't been given the opportunity yet. I mean, I talked to a buddy of mine and he's like, why is Sebastian Berhalter playing? He is terrible. The only thing he can do is create opportunities and set pieces. And if you watch him, he does some good key passes and things like that. Is he as good as Weston McKennie? I don't think so. As far as technical ability goes, I think his decision making might be a little bit better. He has a better presence in his positional play. But how many goals did Berhalter and Chris Richards score off of a deep free kick? I think they scored maybe 2 or 3 in that Gold Cup tournament alone. So I'm going to say I'm optimistic about the United States. I think the more Posh starts to create his group of guys, and now I think coming into this new international break, I think he needs to start kind of picking the guys who he for sure doesn't want to have and start plugging in guys who he thinks should be in there. Out of a roster of 25, I would like to see him have a consistent 17 to 18 right now. And then he can pull guys that aren't working, injuries or things like that. So he can kind of start honing in on that, because, in the socials, on social media, because I usually look at that as well. A lot of people are like, he should have had his roster from the Gold Cup and this should be a representation. It's like, no, this is a time for him to experiment with who we have against other nations who are bringing in their top dogs. I can't speak for Honduras, right? But I definitely think like the Guatemalan national team brought their top guys in. I know Mexico brought in some of their top guys that play consistently. So this is a chance for these guys, the younger guys, inexperienced guys, to not only get an opportunity to play on a big stage, but to also see what the competition is like and basically have that conversation, right? Diego did not play well against Mexico in the final. And so he can pull him to the side and be like, yeah, you got lost. You made mistakes here. You need to work on these specific things when you're at your club and doing other things, because this is what it's going to look like a year from now. And I want you there. I hope he gets there. I love the Diego Luna story. I became a big fan of him over the summer.
No, me too. I definitely love Diego Luna. I don't follow the U.S. men national team as I used to before, right? Because, you know, like my ultimate goal as a coach is to be able to one day be on a youth national team for Honduras, and help the development, and of the player development side in Honduras, right? Um, but it's very interesting, like, to your point, right? Like, to an extent, I kind of disagreed with like Christian Pulisic and some of these guys taking like a break over the summer, and reason being is, like, for example, I'm gonna use Luis Palma, right, from the Honduran national team, as an example, right? He was struggling, so he gets sold to go play in Greece, right? I'm gonna make this real quick. So he gets to go sold to Greece, had a phenomenal season there. He gets sold to Celtic, had a really great first season with Celtic, and then the second season he thought it was just going to be given to him, and next thing you know, he's struggling to get minutes or even to get rostered with Celtic. Goes on loan to Greece and then struggled there for a little bit. Gets called up to the national team for the Gold Cup. Started that game against Canada and then gets benched after Canada. And then, we had other players come in that fill in the spot. And then he was coming in as a sub, right? And at one point, he said that he sat down with the Rueda right before he left, left to go back to Scotland to figure out what he was going to do. And Rueda told him, he's like, dude, if you want to be part of the squad, you need to figure it out with your club, right? Like, if you need to leave your club to go somewhere where you can get more playing time, do it. And whatever you need to do, you need to find that essence that you had before so you can be able to shine on the national team, right? And then I think he's on loan right now with the current champs from Poland. And then right now in the last two games, he had a goal and an assist. And then in the game for the conference league, he had like a goal and an assist, and two assists. So that's good momentum going for him that he's been building up ever since the Gold Cup, right? Because before the Gold Cup, he was on the down, and right now he's like the face of the country. So when you're the face of the country, like someone like Christian Pulisic, you cannot take any breaks. And I get it. Like, we're asking you to play these extra games that you don't necessarily need to play. But when you're the face of your country, you need to step. Especially, obviously here we have like, oh, who's Captain America, right? Because of the superhero and all that stuff. Especially where he is our Captain America. Like, you need to be on the field no matter what.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say this. When it was announced, I was like, what is going on? Like what is happening? Um and I think the expectation of the US performing in the Gold Cup, what like the expectations were significantly lowered now that he wasn't there, right? He's a key player to the team. Um but at the same time, like he's done really well with Inter Milan. It's not like he's not getting minutes at his club or he's not performing at a high level. He is much more than he did at Chelsea, which if he was playing at Chelsea and he wasn't getting minutes and he's just like, oh, I want to get ready for the Club World Cup. I want to do this. I want to do that. I'm not going to play in the Gold Cup. Then I'd have a little bit more of an issue with taking the time off for sure. But he's getting minutes.
But yeah, no, for sure, we'll see. We'll see how this international break grows. I know I know we just came from an exciting week from Champions League and an exciting week
Lots of good footy.
in the club soccer stage. Um, just be ready to come and give some feedback on some of these matches that we're gonna have out there. Um,
Yeah.
it's gonna be fun to see how it plays out. I mean, it's gonna be interesting to see. USA's on this international break and see what pieces they can put together. I feel like at this point, um, Pochettino is starting to kind of like piece the puzzle together, even though he had only like 10 FIFA windows to do it. But I feel like he kind of has a better picture now. So it's gonna be
Oh yeah.
interesting to see where and how far he takes this national team, right? Um, but I know, I mean, I think it's gonna be a good. I think it's gonna be a good break, and I'm excited for it. So with that being said, I am your host, Freddie Rojas. I know this one was a little long because we wanted to mesh in a little bit about everything about football here. But it's gonna be great. It's gonna be a great international break. Like I said, if Honduras loses to Costa Rica, do not call me, do not text me, do not anything, because I am not gonna be up to listen up for that. And then next episode, just be ready because we're gonna come in with some really great stuff. Don't forget to follow us on our social medias. Um, Mine will be Pep50_4. Don't forget to follow Jerrick. Wait, what was yours again?
It's Walkjer10, WALKJER10.
And so yeah, so be ready, be tuned in because next episode I think it's gonna be even better. And just be ready for some of the a couple cool things that we have coming up. And this is it. We're off, and we'll see you guys next week.
Peace.